Marcus Thompson adjusted his worn baseball cap as he loaded camping gear into his old pickup truck. The morning sun cast long shadows across his modest apartment complex parking lot. His 8-year-old daughter Emma bounced excitedly beside him, clutching her stuffed bear and a small backpack decorated with cartoon unicorns. "Dad, are we really going to see real deer in the woods?" Emma asked, for the 10th time that morning, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Marcus smiled, ruffling her curly brown hair that matched his own. "Maybe, sweetheart. We'll have to be very quiet and patient." He double-checked their supplies: a small tent, sleeping bags, basic food items, and his first aid kit from his days as a paramedic before the accident that ended his career. The drive to Pine Ridge National Forest took 2 hours. Marcus had chosen this particular trail because it was known to be safe for families, with well-marked paths and ranger stations nearby. Money was tight after losing his job 6 months ago, but he'd promised Emma this camping trip for her birthday. He'd been working double shifts at the local diner, saving every dollar he could spare. As they hiked deeper into the forest, Emma chattered about everything she saw: a colorful butterfly, interesting rocks, the way sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees. Marcus felt his stress melting away. Out here, away from overdue bills and job rejection letters, he could focus on what truly mattered: being the best father he could be to Emma. They set up camp near a small clearing, about 3 miles from the main trail. Marcus taught Emma how to tie proper knots and showed her which plants to avoid. She listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that reminded him why he loved being her dad, despite all the challenges of single parenthood. That evening, as they roasted marshmallows over their small campfire, Emma suddenly grabbed his arm. "Dad, what's that sound?" Marcus listened carefully. Through the peaceful crackling of their fire and the gentle night sounds of the forest, he could hear something else. Faint calls for help, coming from somewhere in the darkness beyond their campsite. His paramedic instincts immediately kicked. "Stay right here by the fire, Emma. Don't move from this spot, okay? I need to check on something." He grabbed his flashlight and first aid kit. "If I'm not back in 15 minutes, you use the whistle I gave you and stay put until help comes." Emma nodded solemnly, understanding from her father's serious tone that this wasn't a game. Marcus followed the sound deeper into the woods. The calls were definitely coming from a woman, and she sounded distressed. He pushed through thick underbrush, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The voice grew louder as he got closer. "Hello? Can you hear me? I'm here to help," he called out. "Yes. Please, I'm over here." The woman's voice carried a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Marcus found her about 200 yards from his campsite, sitting at the base of a large oak tree. Even in the dim light of his flashlight, he could see she was injured. Her clothes were expensive-looking but torn and dirty. She appeared to be in her late 30s with long, dark hair and an elegant bearing that seemed out of place in the wilderness. "Are you hurt?" Marcus knelt beside her, immediately assessing her condition. Her left ankle was clearly swollen and she had several cuts on her arms from branches. "My ankle, I think it's sprained. I've been lost for hours." She looked up at him with grateful eyes. "Thank God someone found me. I'm Victoria." "I'm Marcus. Let me take a look at that ankle." He gently examined her injury with practiced hands. "Definitely sprained, but it doesn't feel broken. How did you end up out here?" Victoria hesitated for a moment. "I was hiking alone and took a wrong turn. My phone died hours ago and I just kept walking, hoping to find the trail again. Then I stepped wrong and twisted my ankle." Marcus noticed. Her hiking boots were brand new and expensive, hardly broken in. Her clothes, while dirty now, were clearly high-end outdoor gear that looked like it had never been used before, but he kept his observations to himself, focusing on helping her. "We need to get you back to my campsite. My daughter is there, and I have supplies to wrap that ankle properly." He helped her to her feet, letting her lean on him for support as they slowly made their way back through the woods. Victoria kept glancing at him curiously. "You said your daughter is here? How old is she?" 8. "We're on a birthday camping trip." Marcus adjusted his support as Victoria stumbled slightly. Don't worry, she's very responsible for her age. When they reached the campsite, Emma looked up from the fire with wide eyes. Dad, is the lady okay? She hurt her ankle, sweetheart. We're going to help her feel better. Marcus guided Victoria to sit on a log near the fire and began pulling supplies from his first aid kit. As he carefully cleaned her cuts and wrapped her ankle, Victoria watched him work with obvious surprise. His hands were gentle but sure, and he clearly knew what he was doing. Most people would have panicked or fumbled through basic first aid, but Marcus moved with quiet confidence. You're very good at this, Victoria observed. I used to be a paramedic, Marcus replied, securing the bandage. That should help with the swelling. You really shouldn't put weight on it tonight. Emma had been quietly observing the stranger. With the innocent curiosity of a child, she asked, Why were you walking alone in the dark woods, Miss Victoria? My dad says that's dangerous. Victoria smiled at the little girl's directness. You're absolutely right, Emma. I made some poor choices today. Your dad is very smart, and so are you for listening to him. As the night wore on, Victoria found herself drawn into their simple evening routine. Marcus made her a cup of hot cocoa from their camping supplies, and Emma insisted on sharing her favorite camping stories. There was something profoundly peaceful about sitting around the fire with this father and daughter, something she hadn't experienced in her complicated, high-pressure world. She watched Marcus patiently answer Emma's endless questions, saw how his face lit up when his daughter laughed, noticed how he checked on Victoria's ankle without making a big deal of it. Here was a man who clearly had very little in terms of material possessions, yet he radiated a contentment and strength that impressed her more than any wealthy businessman she'd ever met. The next morning, Victoria woke to the sound of Emma's giggling and the smell of coffee brewing over the campfire. Her ankle throbbed, but the swelling had gone down slightly. She opened her eyes to see Marcus teaching his daughter how to flip pancakes in a cast-iron pan, both of them laughing as one pancake went slightly crooked. Good morning, Marcus called out when he noticed she was awake. How's the ankle feeling? Better, thank you. Victoria struggled to sit up, wincing as she moved. You didn't have to let me stay in your tent. I could have managed by the fire. Absolutely not, Marcus replied firmly. Emma and I slept just fine in our sleeping bags under the stars. Besides, you needed rest and protection from the night. Air. Emma bounded over with a plate of pancakes and a cup of coffee. Dad made these special. He put cinnamon in them, and they're the best in the whole world. Victoria accepted the plate gratefully, touched by their generosity. As she ate, she watched Marcus pack up their camping gear with efficient movements. Everything he did seemed purposeful and thoughtful. She noticed his clothes were clean but well worn, his boots had been resoled multiple times, and his camping equipment, while well maintained, was clearly old. Marcus, I need to ask you something, Victoria said carefully. I can pay you for helping me, for the medical care, the food, letting me stay here. Marcus stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. I didn't help you for money, Victoria. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. Any decent person would have done the same. His words carried no judgment, but Victoria felt something shift inside her chest. In her world, everything had a price. Every favor came with expectations. Every kindness was calculated. Yet here was a man who had shared his limited resources with a complete stranger and refused payment as if the idea offended him. I just meant... She started, then stopped. How could she explain that she was used to solving problems with money? That generosity without expectation was foreign to her experience. I know what you meant, Marcus said gently. And I appreciate the thought. But Emma and I are doing just fine. Emma looked between the two adults, sensing something important in their conversation, even if she couldn't understand it fully. Dad says helping people is just what you do. Like when Mrs. Rodriguez's cat got stuck in the tree, or when he fixed Mr. Johnson's car for free because Mr. Johnson is old and lonely. Victoria studied Marcus with new eyes. You fix cars too? I pick up odd jobs where I can, Marcus replied, shouldering his backpack. We should start heading back to the trailhead. That ankle needs proper medical attention, and we need to get you back to wherever you're staying. The hike back took much longer than usual because Victoria had to lean heavily on Marcus and take frequent breaks. Emma walked ahead, pointing out interesting plants and animals, chattering cheerfully to keep their spirits up. Victoria found herself enjoying the little girl's endless enthusiasm and Marcus's patient, encouraging responses. "Dad, look, there's a family of rabbits," Emma whispered excitedly, pointing to a clearing where 3 small rabbits were nibbling grass. Marcus and Victoria stopped to watch. "They're beautiful," Victoria murmured. "I don't think I've ever really noticed rabbits before." "Really?" Emma looked at her with surprise. "They're everywhere in the woods. Dad taught me how to sit really still so they'll come close. Want me to show you?" For the next 10 minutes, Victoria found herself sitting motionless on a fallen log, watching Emma's patient demonstration of wildlife observation. The little girl's joy in these simple moments was infectious. Victoria realized she couldn't remember the last time she had sat still just to watch animals, or noticed the way sunlight moved through leaves, or listened to the different sounds birds made. As they continued their slow journey, Victoria began asking Marcus about his life. She learned that he had been a paramedic for 8 years before a back injury on the job ended his career. He'd received some disability payments initially, but they had run out. He'd been looking for steady work ever since, taking whatever jobs he could find to support Emma. "What about Emma's mother?" Victoria asked carefully, not wanting to pry but curious about their family situation. Marcus's expression grew quiet. "Sarah died in a car accident when Emma was 3. It's been just the 2 of us ever since." "I'm sorry," Victoria said softly. "That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was the hardest thing I've ever been through," Marcus admitted. "But Emma needed me to be strong. She needed stability and love, not grief and anger. So I focused on being the best father I could be." Victoria watched Emma skipping ahead of them, secure and happy despite having lost her mother so young. Marcus had clearly succeeded in his goal. The little girl radiated confidence and joy. Traits Victoria recognized came from feeling truly loved and secure. When they finally reached the parking area, Victoria saw Marcus's old pickup truck and felt a pang of something she couldn't quite identify. Guilt, maybe, or shame. Her own car, parked nearby, was a sleek black luxury SUV worth more than most people made in 2 years. Marcus helped her into the passenger seat of her vehicle, then knelt to examine her ankle one more time. "You really should have a doctor look at this. Keep it elevated when you can and ice it regularly." "I will," Victoria promised. She looked at Emma, who was examining her SUV with obvious curiosity. "Emma, thank you for sharing your camping trip with me. You're a very special little girl." Emma beamed. "Thanks for letting us help you. Dad says helping people makes you feel good inside, and it really does." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes unexpectedly. When was the last time anyone had thanked her for letting them help? In her world, people fought for the chance to do favors for her, hoping for something in return. "Marcus," she said, rolling down her window as he prepared to leave with Emma, "how can I reach you? I'd like to stay in touch." Marcus hesitated. "Victoria, I get the feeling you and I live in very different worlds. I'm not sure what we'd have to talk about." "Please," she said, surprising herself with the emotion in her voice. "You and Emma, you've shown me something important. Something I didn't even realize I was missing." After a moment, Marcus wrote his phone number on a piece of paper from Emma's notebook. "We live pretty simply," he warned. "No fancy restaurants or expensive entertainment." Victoria smiled, the first genuine smile she'd felt in months. "That sounds perfect." 3 days later, Victoria sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor of the Hartwell Tower, staring out at the city skyline. Her ankle was properly bandaged now, and her doctor had confirmed it was just a sprain. But she couldn't stop, thinking about her time in the woods with Marcus and Emma. Her assistant knocked and entered with her usual efficiency. "Ms. Hartwell, the quarterly board meeting is in an hour. The Patterson merger documents need your signature, and you have..." 3 investor calls scheduled this afternoon. Thank you, Jennifer. Victoria replied absently, still gazing out the window. Actually, cancel the afternoon calls, reschedule them for tomorrow. Jennifer looked surprised. Victoria Hartwell never canceled meetings, especially not with major investors. Are you feeling all right? Is your ankle bothering you? Victoria almost laughed. Her ankle was fine. It was everything else that felt wrong somehow. She had returned to her penthouse apartment after the camping incident, back to her routine of 14-hour workdays, business dinners, and charity galas. But the satisfaction she usually felt from closing deals and expanding her company's influence had disappeared. Instead, she kept thinking about the way Emma had looked at the rabbits with pure wonder. How Marcus had refused payment for his help as if the very suggestion was insulting. How they had shared their simple meal by the campfire with genuine joy, despite having so little. That evening, Victoria found herself doing something she'd never done before. She called Marcus. Hello? His familiar voice was cautious, probably not recognizing the number. Hi, Marcus. It's Victoria, from the woods. Victoria, how's the ankle? Much better, thank you. I was wondering, would you and Emma like to have dinner sometime? Nothing fancy, she added quickly. Maybe pizza? There was a pause. That's very kind, but we couldn't ask you to pay for... It's not about paying, Victoria interrupted, then realized she sounded sharper than intended. I mean, I'd like to see you both again, as friends. Another pause. In the background, she could hear Emma asking who was on the phone. Let me talk to Victoria. Emma's voice came through clearly. Marcus must have handed over the phone because suddenly Emma's cheerful voice filled the line. Hi, did your ankle get all better? Dad made me a special bandage for my teddy bear so he could get better too. Victoria found herself smiling for the first time all day. That's wonderful, Emma. Your dad is very good at taking care of people. He's the best dad in the whole world. Are you going to come play with us? Before Marcus could take the phone back, Victoria said, I'd love to, if your dad says it's okay. They arranged to meet at a local pizza place the following Saturday. Victoria spent the entire week second-guessing the decision. What did she have in common with a single father struggling to make ends meet? What did she know about talking to children? Saturday arrived, and Victoria changed clothes 4 times before settling on jeans and a simple sweater. She'd never owned jeans before 3 days ago when she'd impulsively bought them after realizing she had nothing casual enough for pizza with an 8-year-old. Marcus and Emma were already at the restaurant when she arrived. Emma bounced up from her seat and hugged Victoria's legs enthusiastically. You came. Dad said maybe you'd be too busy with important business stuff. Nothing is more important than spending time with friends, Victoria said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Over pizza and root beer, Victoria found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. Emma told elaborate stories about her school friends, her pet hamster named Mr. Whiskers, and her plan to become either a veterinarian or a princess when she grew up. Marcus listened to his daughter with the same attention he'd give to a business presentation, asking thoughtful questions and celebrating her small triumphs. Emma got selected for the school choir, Marcus told Victoria with obvious pride. She's been practicing her songs every day. That's wonderful. I'd love to hear you sing sometime, Victoria said to Emma. Without hesitation, Emma launched into a rendition of You Are My Sunshine right there in the pizza restaurant. Her voice was sweet and clear, and she sang with such joy that other diners turned to listen and smile. Victoria felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. That was beautiful, Emma, she said when the song ended. Dad taught me that song. He sings it to me every night before bed ever since I was little. He says I'm his sunshine. Victoria glanced at Marcus, who looked slightly embarrassed by the attention. She really is, he said simply. As they prepared to leave, Emma tugged on Victoria's sweater. Can we show her the park, Dad, please? The park was across the street from the restaurant, a small neighborhood space with swings, slides, and a duck pond. Victoria watched Emma run straight for the swings, calling for Marcus to push her higher and higher. Her laughter echoed across the park. She has so much energy, Victoria observed, sitting beside Marcus on a bench. Always has. Even as a baby, she was constantly moving, constantly curious about everything. Marcus smiled as he watched his daughter. Sometimes I worry I'm not enough for her, that she needs more than I can give. Victoria looked at him in surprise. Are you kidding? Marcus, she's one of the happiest, most confident children I've ever met. She clearly feels completely loved and secure. Thank you for saying that. It's just, other kids have advantages I can't provide. Music lessons, dance classes, trips to Disney World. I see her friends talking about these things, and I wish money doesn't create happiness, Victoria said quietly. Trust me on that one. Marcus studied her face. You sound like you speak from experience. Victoria hesitated, then decided on honesty. I do. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, Marcus. I can buy anything, go anywhere, do anything. But sitting here watching Emma play, listening to her sing in that restaurant, I can't remember the last time I felt the kind of joy that just radiates from her. What do you do for work? Marcus asked. I realize I never asked. Another hesitation. I run a company, Hartwell Industries. We have interests in technology, real estate, manufacturing. Marcus's eyebrows rose. Hartwell Industries, that's a huge company. I see your name on buildings downtown. Yes, well, Victoria felt uncomfortable with his surprise. It's a family business. I inherited most of it. They sat in silence, for a moment, watching Emma make friends with another little girl on the playground. The two children were sharing the monkey bars, taking turns and cheering each other on. This doesn't change anything, Marcus said finally. What doesn't? Learning that you're wealthy, famous, I guess. It doesn't change the fact that you were lost in the woods, or that you needed help, or that you fit right in around our campfire. He looked at her directly. You're still just Victoria who shared pancakes with Emma and watched the rabbits. Victoria felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you for saying that. Dad, Victoria, come see the ducks. Emma called from the pond's edge. They spent the next hour feeding breadcrumbs to the ducks while Emma provided a running commentary on each bird's personality. That one is definitely the boss duck, she declared, pointing to a large mallard. And that little one is shy but very polite. As the sun began to set, Victoria realized she didn't want the day to end. For the first time in her adult life, she had spent an entire day without checking her phone, without thinking about business, without the constant weight of responsibility and decision-making. This was wonderful, she told Marcus as they walked, back to their cars. Thank you for letting me tag along. Thank you for wanting to, Marcus replied. Emma had a great time. So did I. Emma hugged Victoria goodbye with the same enthusiasm she'd shown all day. Will you come play with us again? Soon? I'd love to, Victoria said, meaning it completely. Over the next few weeks, Victoria found herself looking forward to Saturday afternoons more than board meetings or million-dollar deals. She and Marcus had settled into a comfortable routine, pizza or burgers followed by time at the park or a visit to the local children's museum. Emma had appointed herself as Victoria's tour guide to regular people fun, as she called it. Today we're going to teach you how to make the best paper airplanes ever, Emma announced during their fourth Saturday together, spreading construction paper across Marcus's small kitchen table. Victoria looked around the modest apartment with fresh eyes. It was tiny compared to her penthouse, with second-hand furniture and walls that needed fresh paint. But it was filled with Emma's artwork, family photos, and the kind of warmth that money couldn't buy. The refrigerator was covered with Emma's school papers, all marked with gold stars and encouraging teacher comments. Dad's really good at paper airplanes, Emma continued, carefully folding her paper. He taught me the secret folds. Marcus laughed. It's not exactly rocket science, sweetheart. But you make them fly the farthest, Emma insisted loyally. Victoria attempted to follow their instructions, but her airplane looked more like a crumpled napkin. I think I need more practice, she admitted. That's okay. Dad says practice makes better, not perfect, because nobody's perfect anyway. Emma's philosophy was delivered with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her father's wisdom. After their paper airplane contest in the hallway, Emma's won, flying nearly to the other end. Victoria helped Marcus prepare dinner while Emma did her homework. She watched him stretch a small amount of ground beef into a meal for three by adding vegetables, pasta, and creative seasoning. "You're a good cook," Victoria observed, stirring the pasta sauce he'd made from scratch. "Necessity teaches you a lot of skills," Marcus replied. "Emma needs nutritious meals, and eating out isn't in our budget very often." Victoria thought about her own meals: expensive restaurant dinners, catered business lunches, takeout from high-end places when she worked late. She couldn't remember the last time she'd actually cooked anything from scratch. "Could you teach me?" she asked impulsively. Marcus looked surprised. "To cook? Don't you have people who handle that kind of thing?" "I have a housekeeper who stocks my kitchen and a chef I call for dinner parties. But I'd like to learn how to make real food, family food." Something in her voice made Marcus study her face carefully. "Of course. Emma would love to help teach you too. She's my sous chef. I'm the best stirrer in the whole apartment." Emma called from the table where she was working on math problems. That evening, as they ate Marcus's simple but delicious pasta dinner, Victoria found herself talking about things she'd never discussed with anyone. Her childhood in boarding schools, the pressure of inheriting a business empire at 25, the loneliness of never knowing if people liked her for herself or for her money. "I don't have any real friends," she admitted quietly while Emma was in the bathroom getting ready for bed. "I have business associates, employees, people who want things from me, but no one who just enjoys my company." "That must be incredibly lonely," Marcus said softly. "I didn't realize how lonely until I met you and Emma. You treat me like I'm just a regular person." "You are just a regular person," Marcus said firmly. "You got lost in the woods. You needed help. You were grateful. For kindness, everything else is just circumstances." Emma returned in her pajamas carrying a book. "Will you read with us, Victoria? We're reading about a girl who finds a secret garden." Victoria settled on the small couch between Marcus and Emma, listening as they took turns reading chapters, aloud. Emma snuggled against her side, and Victoria felt a contentment she'd never experienced. This was what family felt like, she realized. This warm, safe feeling of belonging. When Emma fell asleep during the reading, Marcus carried her to her bedroom. Victoria could hear him tucking her in, their quiet conversation about the day's activities, his gentle voice singing, "You Are My Sunshine," until Emma's breathing deepened into sleep. "She adores you," Victoria said when Marcus returned to the living room. "The feeling is mutual," Marcus replied, settling back on the couch. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Victoria found herself studying Marcus's profile. He was handsome in a quiet, steady way, with kind eyes and laugh lines from years of smiling at his daughter's antics. But it was more than his looks that drew her. It was his strength, his integrity, the way he found joy in simple moments. "Marcus," she said carefully, "what would you think about letting me help you find a better job? I have connections, resources." Marcus's expression grew guarded. "Victoria, we've talked about this. I know you don't want charity. This wouldn't be charity. You're qualified, intelligent, hardworking. I could just help you get your foot in the door with the right companies. And what would people think when they learned that Marcus Thompson got his job through Victoria Hartwell's connections, that he's dating the boss for advancement opportunities?" Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Are we dating?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus looked at her directly, his expression serious. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I know I look forward to seeing you every week. I know Emma talks about you constantly. I know you've become important to both of us." "But?" Victoria prompted, sensing hesitation. "But you're a billionaire CEO, and I'm an unemployed single father living paycheck to paycheck. Even if there were feelings involved, what kind of future could that possibly have?" Victoria felt her heart sink. "So you think the money makes us impossible?" "I think the money makes everything complicated," Marcus said gently. I've watched Emma get attached to you. I've gotten attached to you. But what happens when you get bored with playing house with the poor family? When your real life calls you back? His words stung because Victoria could see the logic in them. How could she argue that she wouldn't eventually return to her demanding career, her high society obligations, her world of boardrooms and charity galas? I care about you, she said quietly. Both of you. More than I've cared about anyone in a very long time. I care about you too, Marcus replied. That's exactly why I'm worried. Victoria drove home that night with Marcus's words echoing in her mind. She looked around her penthouse with new eyes, seeing the expensive art and designer furniture as barriers rather than achievements. Her home was beautiful and empty. No child's laughter, no family photos, no warmth. She sat at her piano, an expensive instrument she barely played anymore, and found herself picking out the melody to "You Are My Sunshine." The simple song that Marcus sang to Emma every night seemed more beautiful than any complex classical piece she'd ever learned. For the first time in her life, Victoria began to question whether success meant what she'd always thought it meant. Was an empire worth having if you had no one to share it with? Was power meaningful if it couldn't buy you the things that truly mattered? She thought about Emma's innocent question weeks ago. Why were you walking alone in the dark woods? At the time, Victoria had given a simple answer about getting lost on a hike. But the truth was more complex. She had been walking alone through life for years, lost in a different kind of darkness, until a single father and his remarkable daughter had shown her what light looked like. The following Monday morning, Victoria sat in her office staring at a contract worth $50 million, but her mind kept drifting to Saturday evenings in Marcus's small apartment. She'd been trying to concentrate on business for 3 days, but everything felt meaningless compared to Emma's laughter and Marcus's gentle wisdom. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When she opened it, her breath caught. It was a photo from Marcus of Emma at school wearing a blue ribbon and holding a certificate. The message read, "Emma won the school science fair. She wanted you to know." Victoria immediately called Marcus. "Congratulations. What was her project about?" "She studied how plants grow toward sunlight," Marcus said, and Victoria could hear the pride in his voice. "She's been working on it for weeks, testing different conditions. The judges were impressed by her methodology. That's incredible. We should celebrate. Can I take you both to dinner somewhere special?" There was a pause. "Victoria, we need to talk. Not over the phone. Could you come by tonight after Emma goes to bed?" Something in his tone made Victoria's stomach tighten. "Of course. Is everything okay? We'll talk tonight." Victoria spent the day distracted and anxious. When she arrived at Marcus's apartment that evening, Emma greeted her with her usual enthusiasm, proudly showing off her science fair ribbon and explaining her experiment in detail. But Victoria noticed Marcus seemed distant during dinner, though he tried to hide it from Emma. After Emma's bedtime routine, Victoria and Marcus sat on his small couch, the space between them feeling wider than usual. "I got a job offer," Marcus said without preamble. "That's wonderful," Victoria said, though something in his expression made her celebration feel premature. "It's in Denver. Good position, good pay, benefits, everything I've been looking for." Victoria felt the world shift beneath her. "Denver? That's 1,200 miles away." "I know." Marcus ran his hands through his hair. "The company reached out to me directly. Apparently someone recommended me, though they wouldn't say who." Victoria's cheeks flushed. She'd made a few discreet inquiries, sent Marcus's resume to some connections, but she'd been careful to do it in a way that wouldn't embarrass him. "You think I had something to do with this?" she said quietly. "Did you?" Victoria looked at her. "Hands. I may have mentioned your qualifications to a few people, but Marcus, you got this on your own merit. I just helped them see what I already knew about you." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I asked you not to do that." "I know. And I'm sorry. But you deserve better than scraping by with odd jobs. Emma deserves stability and opportunities. Emma deserves a father who earns his way honestly, Marcus interrupted, not one who advances through his girlfriend's connections. The word girlfriend hung in the air between them. Victoria realized it was the first time either of them had labeled their relationship. "Is that what I am?" she asked softly. Marcus looked at her with an expression full of pain and confusion. "I don't know what you are, Victoria. I don't know how to categorize what's happening between us, and that's part of the problem." "What do you mean?" Marcus stood up and paced to the window. "Emma asked me yesterday if you were going to be her new mom. She's 8 years old and she's already planning a family with you in it." Victoria felt her heart clench. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her it was complicated. But the truth is, Victoria, I don't know what the future looks like. For us. You have a life, responsibilities, a company to run. I have Emma to think about. I can't let her get more attached to something that might not be permanent." "Who says it isn't permanent?" Victoria asked, standing to face him. "Be realistic," Marcus said gently. "You're worth billions of dollars. You live in a penthouse, you travel the world. You make decisions that affect thousands of people. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment and worry about whether I can afford Emma's school supplies. How does that work long term?" Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "It works because none of that matters when I'm with you and Emma. I've never been happier than I am on Saturday afternoons in your kitchen, teaching Emma to make paper airplanes." "But it's not sustainable," Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. "You can play house with us on weekends, but eventually you'll need to get back to your real life. And when you do, Emma will be devastated. I'll be devastated." "So you're going to take the job in Denver?" Victoria said, not really asking. Marcus nodded slowly. "I think it's best for everyone. Emma and I can start fresh, build a stable life. You can go back to your business empire without worrying about us." Victoria felt anger flash through her grief. "Don't tell me what's best for me, Marcus. Don't make this decision for me." "I'm making it for Emma," Marcus said firmly. "She's my priority always. And right now, protecting her from getting hurt is more important than anything else." They stood looking at each other across his small living room, the distance between them feeling insurmountable. Victoria wanted to argue. To fight for what? They had built together, but she could see the pain in Marcus's eyes. He was terrified of letting Emma get hurt, and Victoria couldn't blame him for that. "When would you leave?" she asked quietly. 2 weeks. The company needs someone to start quickly." "And Emma? How is she taking the news?" Marcus's expression softened. "I haven't told her yet. I wanted to talk to you first. She's going to be heartbroken about leaving you." Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I should go. This is a lot to process." Marcus walked her to the door, both of them moving like they were underwater. At the threshold, Victoria turned back. "I love you," she said simply. "Both of you. I know that might not matter given everything else, but I needed you to know." Marcus's face crumpled slightly. "It matters more than you know. That's exactly why this is so hard." Victoria drove home through blurred vision, her chest tight with a pain she'd never experienced before. She'd lost business deals, faced corporate crises, weathered financial downturns, but nothing had prepared her for the agony of losing the only family she'd ever truly wanted. Back in her penthouse, she stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably lying awake wondering if he was making the right choice. Somewhere out there, Emma was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world was about to change again. For the first time since taking over her father's company, Victoria began to seriously question what mattered most in life. She had built an empire, accumulated wealth beyond imagination, wielded power that most people could only dream of. But what good was any of it if she couldn't keep the people she loved from walking away? She thought about Emma's science fair project, how plants grow toward sunlight. Maybe, Victoria realized, she had been like a plant growing in the wrong direction all these years, reaching toward money and power instead of toward the things that actually nourished the soul. The next Morning, Victoria called an emergency board meeting. As she sat at the head of the long conference table, surrounded by executives and financial advisors, she made a decision that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. "I want to discuss transitioning to a less hands-on role in the company," she announced, ignoring the shocked faces around the table. "I'm considering relocating and I need to explore options for maintaining my responsibilities remotely." The room erupted in questions and concerns, but Victoria barely heard them. Her mind was already in Denver, imagining a different kind of life. A life where Saturday afternoons weren't the exception but the rule. A life where love mattered more than profit margins. She had 2 weeks to figure out if it was possible to follow her heart without destroying everything she'd worked for. 2 weeks to decide if a billionaire could really build a life with a single father and his remarkable daughter. 2 weeks to prove that some things were more valuable than money. Victoria spent the next week working 18-hour days, restructuring her entire business empire with a focus she'd never had before. She promoted her most trusted executives, established remote management protocols, and created a foundation that would handle much of her philanthropic work independently. Her board thought she was having a breakdown, but Victoria had never been more clear-headed in her life. On Thursday evening, she drove to Marcus's apartment one last time. She could hear Emma's voice through the door, excitedly talking about packing boxes. When Marcus opened the door, his expression was guarded but sad. "Victoria, I didn't expect to see you before we left. Is Emma here?" "I wanted to say goodbye. Properly." "Victoria!" Emma launched herself into Victoria's arms before Marcus could answer. "Dad told me about our big adventure to Denver. It's going to be like camping but in a new city." Victoria hugged the little girl tightly, breathing in her familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. "That sounds very exciting, sweetheart." "I'm sad about leaving you, though," Emma said, pulling back to look at Victoria's face. "Dad says Denver is very far away." "It is far," Victoria agreed, glancing at Marcus. "But sometimes people we love live far away, and we find ways to stay close in our hearts." Emma considered this seriously. "Will you visit us? Dad says Denver has mountains and snow and everything." "We'll see," Victoria said softly, not trusting herself to promise more. After Emma went to bed, Victoria and Marcus sat on his couch one final time, surrounded by boxes and the remnants of the life they'd built together over the past 2 months. "I have something for you," Victoria said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "It's for Emma's college fund." "Don't argue," she added when Marcus started to protest. "She's brilliant and she deserves every opportunity. Consider it a scholarship from someone who believes in her potential." Marcus took the envelope reluctantly. "Victoria, you don't have to." "I want to. She's going to change the world someday, Marcus. I can feel it. And when she does, I want to know I helped make it possible." They sat in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. "Are you really doing the right thing?" Victoria asked finally. "For Emma, I mean. She loves it here. She has friends, her school, her routine." "Kids are resilient," Marcus said, but Victoria could hear the doubt in his voice. "She'll make new friends, find new routines, and this job, it's a real opportunity for us to build something stable." "What if I told you I was planning to move to Denver too?" Marcus looked at her sharply. "What are you talking about?" Victoria took a deep breath. "I've been restructuring my company so I can work remotely. I could base my operations from Denver just as easily as from here." "Victoria, you can't uproot your entire life for us." "Why not? You're uprooting yours for a job." "At least I'd be doing it for love." Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Victoria had come to recognize when he was struggling with a difficult decision. "It's not that simple," he said finally. "Isn't it?" Victoria turned to face him fully. "Marcus, I've spent my entire adult life building something that I thought mattered. But these past 2 months with you and Emma have shown me what actually matters. You've both changed me in ways I didn't think were possible." "How have we changed you?" Victoria smiled. thinking of Emma's paper airplanes and Marcus's patient cooking lessons. You've taught me how to be happy. Not successful, not powerful, not impressive, just happy. Do you know how rare that is? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What about your company, your responsibilities? The company will be fine. Better than fine, actually. I've been micromanaging for years, afraid to trust anyone else with decisions, but I have incredible people working for me, and they deserve the chance to lead. As for my responsibilities, Victoria shrugged. What's the point of being wealthy if you can't use that wealth to choose the life you want? And what kind of life do you want? Victoria looked around the small apartment, imagining Saturday mornings that stretched into Sunday afternoons, bedtime stories that didn't have to end, science fair projects and paper airplane contests, and quiet dinners around a kitchen table. I want the life we've been building together. I want to teach Emma to drive someday and help her with homework and watch her graduate from high school. I want to grow old with you, Marcus. I want us to be a family. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, and Victoria could see the war between hope and fear playing out in his expression. What if it doesn't work? He asked quietly. What if 6 months from now you realize you miss your old life? What if you get restless or bored or... What if it does work? Victoria interrupted. What if we're happy? What if Emma thrives? What if we build something beautiful together? Before Marcus could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Dad? I can't sleep. Can you sing to me? Emma appeared in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Victoria, her face lit up despite her sleepiness. Are you having a sleepover? Emma asked hopefully. Victoria looked at Marcus, seeing her own answer reflected in his eyes. Actually, sweetheart, Marcus said, opening his arms as Emma climbed onto his lap. Victoria and I were just talking about Denver. How would you feel about Victoria moving there too? Emma's eyes went wide. Really? You mean we'd all be together? In Denver? If your dad says it's okay, Victoria said carefully. Emma looked between the two adults, seeming to understand the importance of the moment despite her young age. I think, Emma said seriously, that families should stay together. And we're a family, right? Even if we're not the regular kind. Marcus looked at Victoria over Emma's head, and his expression had softened into something that looked like wonder. Yeah, sweetheart, he said softly. I think we are. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the kitchen of their house in a Denver suburb, helping Emma with a science project about solar energy while Marcus finished preparing dinner. The house was modest compared to her penthouse, but it was filled with the sounds of family life. Emma's chatter, Marcus's gentle corrections, the dog they'd rescued from the local shelter barking at squirrels in the backyard. Victoria's company was thriving under new leadership, and she'd discovered she was actually a better CEO when she wasn't trying to control every detail. She flew back to the headquarters once a month for board meetings, but otherwise worked from her home office, available for the school pickup and soccer games that had become the rhythm of her new life. Emma burst through the front door, still wearing her school backpack, and launched into a detailed account of her day. Victoria listened with the attention she used to reserve for merger negotiations, asking questions about Emma's friends, her teachers, her plans for the weekend. And guess what? Emma finished breathlessly. Mrs. Rodriguez said our whole family can come to the school science showcase next month. She said she's excited to meet my parents. Victoria felt a warm flutter at the word parents. It had taken Emma exactly 3 weeks in Denver to start calling her mom Victoria, and it never failed to make Victoria's heart swell. That night, after Emma's bedtime story and Marcus's traditional rendition of You Are My Sunshine, Victoria and Marcus sat on their back porch, watching stars appear in the clear mountain sky. Any regrets? Marcus asked, taking her hand. Victoria thought about her old life, the corner office, the power lunches, the constant pressure to achieve more and more. Then she thought about this morning, when Emma had crawled into bed between them to show off a loose tooth, and this afternoon, when Marcus had called her from work just to say he was thinking about her. Only one, Victoria said, smiling at Marcus's surprised expression. I regret that it took me 38 years to get lost in those woods. Marcus laughed, the sound carrying across their quiet neighborhood. Well, I'm glad you finally found your way. Victoria squeezed his hand, thinking of Emma's science project about plants growing toward light. Sometimes, she reflected, getting lost was the only way to discover where you truly belonged. And sometimes the best rescue came not from being found by strangers, but from finding your way home to the family you never knew you needed.